Hello, everyone. We are live from my apartment in Lower Queen Anne. This is the Find Me in Seattle podcast. It is Friday, January 8th. I'm your host every single week here. My name is Cayson, and it has been a heck of a week, hasn't it? I hope you guys are, I hope you're just feeling okay, and this week hasn't rocked you like it seems it has rocked everybody else. This has been, I didn't think it could get crazier. I really didn't think it would get crazier, but this might have been the wildest, most stressful week for me during the quarantine. I think thinking back to the beginning of March and April and the stress and the uncertainty and the, being scared of the outbreak of coronavirus leading into the summer. I think some of the early protests were concerning and worrisome. I know that second night, that Saturday of the protest, when things got really crazy here in downtown Seattle, they were lighting cars on fire. I live probably maybe a mile away from where that was all happening. That was I was definitely concerned that night about going to bed, what was going to happen with the city, what was it going to turn into, and it turned out being okay. It led to protests really for at least 60 more days from there. But Wednesday was a day like no other. I can't say it in any other way. I'm almost speechless. I've been thinking about recording the show for 2 days now. And it's like, what do I want to say? What don't I want to say? How do I want to document this moment? And it's just, oh, man. So on Wednesday, well, let me backtrack. This show is about me talking about Find Me in Seattle and the people and places and things that happen within this city. And when I started the podcast, and really when I started Find Me in Seattle, I did not want to really get into the politics of the city. I always just wanted to keep a focus on local businesses. But there have been moments where there have been things that happened in the last year that are too big not to talk about and not address. And I keep thinking that this show specifically is partially a documentary for myself, right? This is something that I want to come back to in 10 years and re-listen to what I thought about the things that happened in these monumental weeks. And even so, if my children are inclined, that they can go back to. And I think this week is going to be one of those weeks that my children are going to ask me about, because it has honestly never happened in history. And this past year, just every week, I know you feel the same way. You think nothing can surprise me now, right? Haven't we seen it all? And this just takes it to the next level. So what is this that I'm talking about? On Wednesday, the government, should I say, were finalizing the electoral count for the 2020 presidential election. This is a formality. There is really nothing that is a surprise about this day. This is not a day that really ever gets talked about in a normal election. But because of all the claims of fraud from the president and his followers, this day had become important, because this was the final day before the inauguration that it said it's official. Joe Biden won the election. And the electoral votes are counted. It's all set. It's all done. It's set in stone. And so this day has been promoted specifically by the president as a protest day called the March on Washington. He was going to have a big rally simultaneously with when the electoral college votes were being certified by the Congress and by the House, just a couple blocks down the street. Like I said, not a day that normally gets covered. It's a very, it's a formality kind of day. Everyone knew this was going to happen. It's part of the process. It's really just reading scripts and going through. And the day before, we had the special runoff election for the last 2 Senate seats of Georgia. So I actually I was up late on Tuesday night because I was very curious about what was happening in this Georgia election and seeing the votes come in and hearing all the dialogue go back and forth. And one of the races more or less had been called on Tuesday night. On Wednesday morning, it was looking like Ossoff was going to win the second Democratic seat, but we weren't sure. So I woke up on Wednesday morning, and surprisingly, I woke up really early, hours before I normally do. And I don't really think it was related to me being anxious about the election, but I don't know, something triggered and I woke up, which never, if you ask Amanda, that never happens for me. And I woke up and I just like got on my couch, made some coffee, tuned in, was primarily checking in to see the Georgia election and just hear what had happened over the night and where the counts were, knowing that the East Coast was a little further ahead. And then that all went smoothly. Both Democratic candidates ended up winning Georgia. Now the state Senate moving forward are split 50-50, which is going to be very interesting moving forward. That totally got overshadowed. That was this big thing. Over, I believe it was $500 million was fundraised for that Georgia race. Completely wiped out the next day. No one even talked about it because what happened. And so it starts getting to like this Trump rally. It's going to be at like 1 p.m., 10 a.m. our time here on the West Coast. And I was watching CNN, and then I thought they were going to show it, and CNN wasn't going to show the Trump rally. So I turned it to Fox News. And when it comes to CNN and Fox News, I know those are the two that are kind of highly contested and always talk about leaning very far right and very far left. And I like watching both of them and jumping back and forth because I love to see the narratives and how they're different. And because Fox News is, from what it sounds like, the number one news source in America, I want to watch it, even though a lot of it I don't agree with, because I just want to know what so many people are seeing and what's being told to them. And I like to see the same thing with CNN. I like to see the left side. And I think CNN tends to be more, I mean, it's more left and more right. And so I tried to find a middle by watching both of them. So I turned on Fox News because I know they're going to show the Trump rally. And the whole Trump rally is very typical what Trump's been doing for a long time. And you know, talking about how the election was stolen from them and there's a lot of fraud and conspiracy and the election machines aren't trustworthy and mail-in ballots with dead people voting and young people voting, and it was just all a giant fraud. He says that he won by a lot of votes. He said he got the most votes. He likes to tout that he got more votes than any sitting president ever, right? Giving himself a lot of credit and saying that they are stealing. He also, during that speech, started throwing people on his side under the bus, specifically Mike Pence, his vice president. And so as his speech is winding down, the Congress and the Senate are starting up over in their congressional house, and they are starting to count all the votes. Now, we knew that the Senate was going to take a long time because there were 6 states that they were going to contest, which is a formality. We knew how it was going to go, but they could contest the electoral votes for the 6 swing states here in the election. And so they were at Arizona. And what happens is it was supposed to take like all day to do this vote, because when they contest Arizona, then they more or less have 2 hours to go and debate it, and they come back and they vote. We move forward. It's a very symbolic thing to contest that because we know the way people are going to vote more or less ahead of time based off their party. And so they're in the middle of contesting the Arizona votes, and Trump like does a countdown and sends his march to the Congress, right, to the building. And that's where it all takes off. And it just turned into complete mayhem at the United States Capitol. The protests turned into a riot. They got on to the steps. They broke into the building. They had to lock down the building. All of the Congress members and Senate members were all evacuated, put in secure locations. They were breaking through the windows, climbing through into the house, breaking down doors, chasing cops through, pushing the cop line all the way back to the point where there were what they call protesters and rioters, whatever way you want to call them. The rioters got into the building. They went and they trashed all the offices of the Senate and Congress members. There are pictures of them just destroying everything. There was a guy who stole mail out of one of their offices. They are in the Senate court. They're sitting on the chairs. They're sitting up where like Vice President Pence would be sitting doing this election. And it is complete mayhem. It has turned into a riot. There is a really odd balance of police enforcement, and it just turns into an absolute chaos mess. And so unexpected, and it was just mind-blowing to watch. And as this is going on, it's progressing like into the afternoon. I'm getting emails from my afternoon meetings that are all like canceling. Like the 3 big calls I had, all canceled, right? Everyone was like, we're too focused on this. How are we going to have a conversation about, posting on Facebook or whatever we're going to do when something like this is happening? And I felt the same way. It was really scary to see people be this angry that they were going to break into an official government proceeding that was happening with it's 250, more than 250 elected officials all in the same building to place this vote for president. And these rioters break into the building and take over the building. And they take it over extremely easily. Very, very little fight was put up. There was tear gas, there were rubber bullets that were shot, there were points of conflict, especially when the National Guard finally did get called in. And there's lots of stories coming in about how long that took, who was responsible for that, why weren't they ready, why weren't they prepared. There's images of police officers kind of abandoning their post and letting people through the doors or through the gates. We don't have a lot of the information. We are just kind of watching this all unfold in live time, but we're both on Fox News and CNN. They have Congress members and Senate members like calling in saying we are safe in a secure location, but this is really scary, denouncing the protest, which then turned into a riot. And it was what I believe was a true physical coup on the government. And that's why I needed to talk about this, because this is unheard of in American history. And after this all takes place, there was a senator that I watched. I then couldn't turn my head away from this. And the fact that the Congress and Senate came back that evening, I guess technically the next morning, and followed through with the vote was really cool. And to see all the speeches that were made. But one House member made this comment, and he said, democracy is the substitute for war. But in America, we have chosen to have democracy where we are going to have elections, and then we are going to concede those elections and the result of the people. So for 200 plus years, we have had presidential candidates win and lose, and the losers peacefully bow out and say, I've lost. We've had the losing presidents, the incumbent presidents, people sitting, controlling all the power, peacefully hand over the White House to the next incoming president. And that has been the foundation of freedom and democracy, to say we aren't going to fight. We are going to believe in the process and the things that we believe in, and this is what is going to happen, and we are not going to have a war about it. And that has been a cornerstone to America's success and why we are the country that up until this point the entire world thought we were. Thought we are? I don't know how everyone feels right now. I think we should be embarrassed by what happens. This when you read articles, I was reading some of these articles like coming out of Europe, right? And it looks like we're a third world country, right? Where the losing party then storms the government building and physically tries to take control of the government. And for a little while, they did. They had, there weren't police. They had control and they were running rampant. Obviously, the government works a little deeper than that, just like being the president in the building. I think COVID-19 has showed us you don't need to be in the building to conduct your work or do your business. So it wasn't per se take it over, but there's like some dangerous things that I think we avoided, right? There are rumors that there were pipe bombs, there are being weapons found in people's cars. There were now, at this time, 2 days later, there are 5 people who have died from this event, including 1 police officer. One woman was shot inside the building when she broke through one of the windows, and the other 3, they say, from medical causes. I read one story, it was a guy who had a heart attack. But even still, it was such a scary day for all of us. I could not turn away from the television and look away from what was going on, because it had just never been done before. There's this image of a man with a Confederate flag running through this building. And it was said that it was the first time that a Confederate flag was pretty much flown in this building. And to think that that's where we are in 2021, that someone representing a Confederate mindset and the Confederate flag, which stood for slavery. Slavery was the number one binding position that had the South and the Confederacy was together. We fought a civil war. Hundreds of thousands of people died fighting to take down that flag so slavery didn't win. And someone rushed in with a Trump flag and a Confederate flag and forced this presidential vote to stop, forced all of our elected representatives to abandon their posts and to go into hiding. And that is just absolutely so scary to think about America, to think of why people are this angry. And so let's talk about that, right? Because a lot of the arguments that are coming from the pundits on the right who, unfortunately, I can't believe some people are rationalizing this. It sounds like that's a small amount of people, because rationalizing this is just not fair. It is absolutely bonkers, in my opinion. But they are saying, look, these people are mad about not being heard, not being represented, not being taken seriously, the election being a fraud, and us not looking into this election. And I will concede that, yes, the voting system needs to be evaluated, it needs to be looked at. I've talked about this in my show, Community is a Verb. We don't have any national direction about how it all operates just on the state. And when we have COVID-19 and we have a pandemic, things got forced and things got changed. So I understand that people are concerned with what happened with these mail-in ballots. I have an interesting perspective when it comes to mail-in ballots. I have voted in every presidential election since 2008 in Oregon and Washington. I've only ever voted by mail. I have never walked into a polling place and vote. So I have a very biased opinion when it comes to mail-in voting, because it has been amazing for me. It's so easy, so simple. I trust it. It works. It is so convenient. They send it to you. They send the information. You fill it out. You sign it. You make sure your signature is right. You date it, and you put it in a box. Like, it's so easy. It feels like the right thing to do for me, and I'm pretty confident that all my votes have counted up to this point in all of these elections that I voted in. And so I understand that you have concerns about the election. We need to look into that. We need to have a committee go and look into that. That's totally fine. I don't think that those are reasons to sack a governmental building and be the cause of 5 people's deaths because of it. That is just the turning point. And so the other question, right? It's always getting compared to what happened in the summer with the Black Lives Matter protest. And of course, right? Because the Black Lives Matter protests, there was so much debate and so much argument, right? And not to say that I stand for the destruction that was caused, right? There were local business owners who lost their businesses for lots of different reasons, whether they were burned to the ground, or, how many businesses got their windows shattered or attacked, or businesses that put their opinions out online and were attacked for that. There was a lot of destruction and mayhem that came from the protests this past summer. But let's put this into perspective. In the end of May, the entire world watched a black man who was being, arrested for a $20 counterfeit bill. He was being arrested, and then he was murdered. And all of us watched that video of a police officer, someone who was paid as a public worker, paid by all of us in our tax dollars to protect us as individuals. And he was murdered because he had a counterfeit $20 bill. A fake $20 is not worth being murdered for. And this is one story of many of black people being treated so unfairly, a history of slavery and oppression in our country against a specific group of people because of what they look like. And we all watched it, and people protested in the streets against the authority of police, saying that police have overstepped their boundaries and we need a change in how we police here in America, because there is injustice against them. And millions of people over 2 months and more had thousands of protests across the country. Thousands, right? And so when you think about that scale amount of people, yes, there was some there's destruction in every single city. There are still protests happening in Portland, and the National Guard was coming. Trump tweeted out about severe punishments for anyone who damaged the courthouse in Portland. We had protests here in front of the City Hall that were extremely peaceful, no violence whatsoever. The violence what happened is when police met with protesters face to face, and there were bad actors, right? Someone threw a candle or threw a bottle, right? And then it sparked off. But all of these protests were always managed from the police perspective with batons and riot shields and gear and tanks and militarized weapons. So then when you watch a group storm the Capitol and not overturn, but overtake the process of all of our chosen elected officials making a huge decision, right? And placing a vote for the President of the United States, and they charge that building and break all the windows and break in, overrun the police. I think those are very, very different stories, and they deserve different perspectives. And I'm looking at them from different perspectives. And there just wasn't that kind of attack on the millions and millions of people who protested that Black Lives Matter. And they do. Let me make that very clear. And versus people who are protesting because they're angry that they lost an election. And so they wanted to overturn the election because they lost. And because their leader told them that it's a fraudulent election. And I think it's a coup attempt. I put that out on my Facebook. I said on January 6th, I want my Facebook memories to remind me on January 6th, 2021, that a group of a Trump rally called March on Washington turned into a riot where they rushed a congressional building and tried to overtake the election of the president. That's something that you hear in third world countries, right? That's not something that happens in America. And I think it was a really scary and I think it was a really sad day for America. I think we all should be embarrassed that this is what has come to our country. And I just don't think that this is over. I think there are a lot of people who not only are just angry about what happened, but it's like you've had 4 years of Trump and you still don't feel heard. There's something about that, right? But because your person loses, I think about the inauguration 4 years ago where I was not happy at all when Trump got elected. That really hurt me a ton. I was worried this was going to happen. We all were. So many people were worried about what was going to happen with the Trump presidency. And it's all come to this crescendo moment. And the thing was, Trump won. And at the inauguration, Hillary Clinton, who got more votes but still lost, was there. And Barack Obama, who had been criticized by Trump for 8 years for his birth certificate, what color suit he wore, a lot of criticism that stems a lot from what Barack Obama looks like. And they were all there. They shook Donald Trump's hand. They gave him over the keys and said, "It is your presidency now." And they did that with honor. And now to see it all come to this is just really sad for America. And I'm worried. I don't know in the future what this is going to turn into. I was reading this article because the coup, this attempt, Trump has been tweeting about it for a month, over a month, calling it a protest, a march on Washington, lots of rhetoric around the word fight, right? We're going to fight. We're going to overturn this election. We are going to go down and change their minds, right? And, oh man, so when it comes to the word coup, I wanted to do research. I'm like, what is the history of this? How does it happen? And Adolf Hitler in the early 1920s actually attempted a coup on his government and he failed. But by 1933, Adolf Hitler had become Chancellor of Germany, which we all know what happened after that. And so I'm scared of all of the stories that like failed coups turn into successful coups in the future, right? They learn their lesson and they try again, or they come back in a different way. And I think that's really scary to see a physical attack on the government the way it did and how easy it was for these protesters to get in is really heartbreaking. It's super concerning because I just don't think what happened warranted this. In government, if we're unhappy with the way the process went, then we need to settle it like Americans and as adults. And the political process needs to fix that situation. You don't strong arm people here in America, right? You don't rally the troops and force somebody's hand to make a decision. I think it was pathetic and embarrassing, and shame on all of the people who think this was right. And if you still think that was right, that is terrible. If you think that way, it's going to be the end of democracy. It will. If people continue to rationalize that that was the right thing to do, it's going to happen again, and we will not survive as a democracy if people think that they are going to storm the gates to overturn an election that they lost. Not a single court. There's over, I think, 90 cases now that have not identified a single form of fraud or election tampering. The Supreme Court of the United States has rejected it. And now, after this, some of Trump's biggest supporters and Senate members have said, this is done. It's gone out of hand. It's over. And so it's just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to see what is happening in this country. And the fact that it ended in this way is maybe not surprising. I don't know. But it happened. But it happened for the first time in American history. Or I guess it was actually the second time that something like this has happened, but first time in the modern history. I think last time it happened was in the 1800s, so it's not even relevant. And I hope that we can get over this. I hope that we can come to the table and everyone feels like they are represented and being taken care of, because if this continues to be the way that our country acts, we are not going to last at all. It will turn bad, and that's really, really sad to say. So the other question is, Connor, who do you think is at fault for all this? I put Donald Trump right at the top. I am going to go with the courts, and I don't think that there's any fraud in this election. I think it was a fair election. The numbers that came out, 70 million, 80 million for their perspective candidates, I think those numbers kind of turn out based off what we saw, how many people were interested in this election. We were going through a pandemic. Donald Trump has been the center of attention for 4 years. He intentionally wanted himself to be center of attention. He has put himself in the front of the narrative for 4 straight years. It all culminated to this. Lots of people voted. We haven't had a single legal, factual argument be made or presented that shows that there was any fraud whatsoever. I trust the election. I believe in what happened. And I think as time is going on, the history books will write that. And there's no way that Trump is going to win this. And this ending is, he honestly, this put a big dent in his legacy, in my opinion. I think he changed a lot of people's minds. I've seen people who voted for Trump in November denounce what happened and say, I voted for Trump in November, but I no longer support him after this, and I will not support him in 2024 because this was just to the extreme. And it was hard to watch because he put out yesterday, so 24 hours later, he put out a 2-minute video that was completely read, which he very rarely does. And he condemned all of the rioters and the protesters, and he said they all be punished for the destruction. He didn't ever say, I'm sorry. He didn't take any credit or any blame for what happened, even though these were people who attended his March on Washington. And this is how the protest ended, with his people attacking his other people, right? A lot of these people, not a lot of these people, but there's people in Congress and the Senate who have been showing him support for all 4 years and had his back the entire time. And he took his most avid fans attacked those people. That's just uncalled for. I'm very curious what's going to happen if they are going to try to impeach him again, if they're going to act the 25th Amendment. There's only 12 more days of his presidency at this time, so who knows what's going to happen. And I think it's his fault. I think it is all the mainstream media. One of and it goes on both sides. A lot of the mainstream media is should take responsibility. In watching both CNN and Fox News, I always find Fox News funny because Fox News loves to blame the mainstream media, and it's always baffling, and it's one of the most it's one of the points that gets brought up a lot on Fox News that drives me nuts is they like to point fingers at the mainstream media for causing this. And I'm just like, you guys are the most popular show and channel in America on both. You guys have the top Facebook page, and you usually every week have the top Facebook posts in all of America, and you have the most watched shows within news and media on television in America. They are the mainstream media. They are the mainstream media, and they constantly are talking about how the mainstream media created this and are destroying our democracy. And it's like, yes, and you are the mainstream media. You're not a part of it. I read plenty of independent journalism that is not the mainstream media, and I'm hoping that as this continues to go, these big media companies who are politically driven and financially politically driven lose a lot of their power and a lot of their respect. The problem is if you go to Newsmax and other places, I mean, you just don't know what to trust and what's real. We've got to find independent journalists who are doing the research, who are backing up their research with facts and doing the right thing, trying to find out the truth. And, oh man, so... Wow, it's just such a crazy week, and I couldn't not talk about it because of what happened. I'm going to remember this forever. I think I'm going to have children, and they're going to be 15. They're going to be taking a government class and a U.S. history class, and this day will get brought up for sure when we're talking about, hopefully, when we're able to talk about fair elections, when they're learning about the process of the election, learn about what happened, and the contestation and the contestation, is that a word? I don't know. But contesting the election, they went through all the legal routes. I don't have a problem with them taking it to the courts and even taking it to the Supreme Court, but they lost. And Trump said that in his speech. He's like, we lost. We did everything legally we could, and you did everything illegally that you could too. And what's going to happen is Trump's not. There are going to be dozens of people who go to jail for what happened. Rightfully so. You should not be attacking a federal building. That is an act of terrorism, in my opinion. They deserve to go to jail. These people, smashing windows at Target is not the same as smashing windows at the state Senate, or at the Senate building. They're just not the same. They're not comparable. Everyone in DC knows about the security with those buildings. It is the national government. You don't mess around with those things. And the ignorance of these people to smash these windows and get through. I think they are going to be the ones, the followers of Trump are going to be the final ones to be dealt the final blow from Trump. And I wouldn't be surprised if Trump, walks off into the sunset on a lot of this stuff, whether he gets pardoned or whatnot. He will go off and people will still follow him because they believe what he's saying, I guess. And I know I didn't want to bring this up for all of you guys, but it was such a crazy day. I couldn't get anything done this whole week. It has been on my mind, and now it's like, what's going to happen? And what are we going to do about it, and how are we going to fix this problem? We clearly have a lot of not only damaged people, people who are super angry. We're lucky that they didn't take their anger to the next level. And I'm rationalizing only 5 people dying, which is so sad and terrible. But we have a lot of big disagreements here. But America needs to get a lesson in losing. A lot of people have lost elections. Right? Al Gore in 2000, he lost his election by 500 votes. 500 people in Florida changed the election where he went from being vice president to not having a job, and George Bush won. and he was the vice president. So he had to run that election that happened on Wednesday. So this must have been 2001. Al Gore ran the electoral vote after it went to the Supreme Court, and it was determined by 500 votes in Florida. And he honorably said, I lost. These votes are the way the votes go. And George Bush Jr., you're the one who won. And he didn't handle it with a march. He didn't tell his supporters to go storm the Capitol and break that up, and that they stole the election from them. It's so embarrassing, America. It's so embarrassing. It makes me think of all these things that are happening, right? It was like, man, like, didn't we learn as millennials? As millennials, we have been called the trophy generation, right? And I don't doubt those names. I totally get why we have those names. As we've grown up, we've been given so much privilege. As young people here in America, we've grown up in an amazing place. America is full of opportunity and lots of wealth. So we're called the trophy generation because the generation before us coddled us a ton, right? And we're the generation that when you play a sport, you get a participation trophy. And we're the ones that were told that we're sore losers, and we didn't learn how to do that. And for sure, there's a lot of people who broke into the Senate that were my age and were millennials, but their leader is far from that. Their leader is one of the oldest presidents of all time, right? He's an old man. He's 3 times my age. So, oh man, it's very interesting to look at all the name calling and how millennials as a generation, we've been criticized, and to see it playing out in all generations is just very, very funny to me. Same thing, I think I've said this in a previous episode, to just be about how we were told to not believe everything that you read on the internet. And now we see a giant generation of our parents who are addicted to Facebook and addicted to Fox News, and they believe everything that they read on the internet. And they don't have a sense of doing their research and looking for facts and not believing every single thing they read and having some level of suspicion to everything they read before they get all the facts. And I'm guilty of that too. I read plenty of headlines. It's not to say I'm not guilty of that, but I'm not going to storm a Capitol building or government building for any of those things. So that is just absolutely crazy. And it's going to continue. We'll see what happens. That I have so little else to talk about when it comes to that, because that did consume my entire week. But I have segments at the end of the show. I'm trying to create new segments here on the show because I want to get back to that. But here at the end of the episode, we always cover at least 2 rapid fire questions. And so let's get to that segment here of the Find Me in Seattle show. First segment is my meal of the week. My meal of the week comes from the Market Fishmonger up in Edmonds. It's like 15 miles north of downtown Seattle. We've been up there quite a bit, and there's some amazing food. Featured business I did Ono Poke a couple weeks ago, but this Market Fishmonger, first, they're doing a great job with their COVID protocols. They have just a cart outside. You can see in the windows the whole kitchen staff. You can't even go inside. They have a cart with a point of sale and their menu. You order there, and then they have a what you've seen most restaurants with the covered patio. They've got 3 tables under this tent, but then they've built out this other outdoor seating that are like these blocked off booths where it's covering, and this is a permanent structure. So I know it'll be good in the winter and in the rain. I think there was like 5 booths there. So, I mean, 8 tables is pretty good. I never actually went inside, so I don't know how many tables they had before, but they can still serve a lot of people, and it's not like an extremely long meal. And so what this place has become very Instagram famous for are their crab and or lobster rolls, and they totally hit the spot. They are a little expensive. I think the lobster roll was like $28, but it totally lived up to the hype. The butter roll is absolutely delicious, and the lobster just hit the spot. Had no problem with the price after eating this roll. Then we also got a clam chowder bread bowl, which combination of those two, Amanda and I just really enjoyed the meal and passing it back and forth, right? You take a couple bites of sandwich and then you flip the plate and eat some of the chowder bread bowl. Just absolutely delicious. So good. The Market Fishmonger in Edmonds, you are my meal of the week. I did buy a $25 gift card, so make sure to follow me on my Instagram account, and I will be giving that away there here in the coming weeks, along with lots of other. I've been loading up on gift cards, so I'll be doing a lot of giveaways for you guys. The second segment of every single Find Me in Seattle episode is my business of the week. And right now I'm doing a giveaway for this business on my Instagram account. This is Quickfire. And maybe you probably haven't ever heard of Quickfire because they don't have a brick and mortar establishment. But Quickfire is inspired by the chefs of Bell Harbor International Conference Center and the World Trade Center Seattle. And with the COVID-19, the change of their travel industry, they're used to cooking hundreds of meals for people every single day who are coming to these conference centers from around the world for conferences, meetings, executives, and those aren't happening anymore, and they're not going to happen for a while. So they teamed up and they've started to do these at-home meal kits. So they hit me up, they asked me to cover it. They did give me this meal kit for free, which was delicious. But I want to cover what's in the game day meal kit. I know there's also a jambalaya meal kit and a few others. Give them a Google and you can see what else. But in this game day meal kit, plethora of desserts and treats, and it took like 30 minutes to prepare all this food. But here's what's included. They have smoked pork baby back ribs seasoned with a house-made barbecue dry rub, ancho chili barbecue sauce, and all you do is you take the rack, put it in the oven. I think it was like for maybe 10 minutes, and then they have all the sauce. You warm it up, drizzle them all, and they were good to go. They also came with a ton of a giant box of chicken wings that were pre-marinated is the right word. And so the free range chicken wings come with a classic buffalo sauce and a sweet chili sauce, or you can leave them plain, obviously. I think there was like 12 or 18 wings total. It came with gourmet popcorn with a caramelized butter and bacon topping. So you pop the popcorn and put the topping on, and then a loaded potato salad, which was super delicious with cheddar cheese, bacon, scallions, and sour cream. I don't usually like potato salad, but this one got me a lot more interested, and maybe I'll give it a little bit more credit here moving in the future. And they give you chips and a ton of different dips. Came with salsa roja, roast pepper queso, and a veggie crudite with a giant thing of ranch. And so all of this food was just for me and Amanda, and it was way too much food for me. It lasted 2 whole meals, and it was heavy and thick. But if there was a game, say you were watching the Seahawks game this Saturday, or maybe we win and we make it to the next round, or who knows, whatever, even if it's not sports, you just want to have a weekend where you're going to eat some chicken wings and some ribs and feel kind of like a barbecue. Not have to do a ton of preparation, and you can just buy it all in one bag. It's in a sealed bag that you pick up right there at the World Trade Center down by the waterfront. Really easy, real consistent. The instructions are straightforward. You throw the wings and the ribs in the oven. You heat up some of the stuff, and you're going. It was so easy and absolutely delicious. So Quickfire, shout out to you guys. You guys are my business of the week and a lot of fun. And if you're hearing this in time, go check out my giveaway. I'm giving one of these meal kits away for free. All you have to do is comment on the Instagram post and follow Quickfire and like the post. Very easy for a chance to win. And I know you'll be happy and you'll be very full one of these evenings. Hopefully you have someone in your household to share that meal with. All right. Is there anything else that I'm thinking of? This week was just so crazy. I can't believe that happened. Part of me, I guess, can believe that it happened, right? It was the cherry on top of a crazy 4 years of hopefully one of the most wild presidential runs we will ever see. Hopefully we don't elect someone like that again, who only cares about himself and is only going to put himself in the forefront. I don't really believe that America cares about Trump. I don't think he cares about Republicans. He definitely doesn't care about Democrats. He only cares about himself. That's why the narrative has only been about him and what he wants and he wants to do. That's why he has taken zero responsibility for any negative thing that has happened in the last 4 years. He has only taken credit for things that he thought he has done well, and all of those things he thinks he's done perfectly or exceptionally well. To have a leader who cannot admit fault is not something that we can do. I think about this in my own business every single day. It is so important for leaders to be taking responsibility for their wrongdoings and the mistakes that happen, even when they're not their fault. it is the leader thing to do. And we haven't seen that in 4 years. So we will see what happens in the future. But thanks for listening. All the people out there in the future, you listen on YouTube. Thank you so much for jumping back in this episode. Who knows what day and what year it is, but I thank you. Thanks for coming in and listening to my recollection and story 2 days after one of the wildest days in modern government history, in my opinion. And hopefully we don't have that again. Hopefully in 10 years you're not watching this because they had a successful one. I hope that this is just, we learned our lesson and we get through this. Once again, my name is Cayson. This is the Find Me in Seattle podcast. Please, if you're listening there on your iPhone right now, you're listening to me, open up your podcast app, go give me 5 stars, maybe say something nice in the comments. That'd mean a lot to me. If you're listening to this, those reviews mean a lot. Give me a thumbs up on YouTube. Subscribe if you really want to keep listening on YouTube. And yeah, see all these other things that I'm pointing at? Go check out those videos. They're there for you to watch. I make these for you. This is Find Me in Seattle. I am your host, Cayson, and I'll be back next Friday for another episode. See ya.